Welcome back to the Acoustic Shop channel. Today we're going to be listing the top 15 builders you absolutely need to know in acoustic guitars.
From boutique luthiers to the innovation and value of our favorite big brands, we've got you covered.
That's right.
Endless highways are calling after me.
Welcome back, everybody. You can find a full performance video of that song in another video, and we will have the link to that in the description.
And you know what really helps, guys? If you can take one moment and just hit that like button, it really helps the YouTube algorithms and helps get this video pushed out. So
people love the way you say algorithms.
Algorithms.
They love that.
He's a good dancer. Anyway, John, what are we here for?
Well, we're going to be talking about 15 of the biggest, the most important, and to me, some of the very best in acoustic guitar building. These are the companies who have been doing it, some of them for a very long time, some of them are new to the game, and we're going to explain why they're all 15 of my favorite guitar builders out there.
Now this list is in no particular order, correct, John?
Yeah, it's really hard to discuss and say these are the 15 best guitars out there.
Ooh, that'd be fun. Let's do that.
It's really hard because all of these companies do some amazing things, and these are just 15 of my favorites of who I think really rises to the top in their games. Now, again, there's always going to be controversy when it comes to us putting out this
favorite one
list.
didn't make the list.
Yeah, and trust me, I recognize how many amazing guitars there are out there that are not on this list.
And could justifiably be included.
They should be, they probably, but there's only 15 spots, and we had to talk about either, and all of these really, honestly, have really done something in the industry to really push them to the top of guitar building. So let's talk about a few of them. Jeremy, I want to start with a company that I think is really, really cool and innovative because they're doing a lot of old world stuff and a lot of really new world stuff, and that is Furch. Furch is a company out of the Czech Republic, and they are doing some really cool things from their vintage line all the way into their Rainbow Series stuff. All of those guitars have really kind of taken on some things that are tried and true. Modern building, especially in all the color series of the Rainbow. That's why it's called the Rainbow Series. Building very Taylor-like style guitars, but bringing back a little bit more of some of the old world techniques that we have seen from other master builders, but also taking innovation because they're now using carbon reinforced truss rods and pushing things to that further level.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I was a really big fan of Furch. From the first time I heard them, they do have a really cool, unique vintage tone, or they have a very unique modern tone, and they're just doing all of it with new add-ons.
I think the quality of the build is very evident when you have one in your hands.
Absolutely. Which leads us to another company. This is a tried and true company, Yamaha guitars. And they've actually stepped up their game recently to really, truly be included in the top level ones. The FG9 series, the FS9 now that has just been released, those guitars are on par with any of the top builders out there, and yet they have been always building some inexpensive instruments that have always risen to the top of their class. That's a big surprise, you know, for a company as big as them. Realize Yamaha's been building motorcycles to music equipment, pianos.
Band and orchestra.
They're in every gamut of pretty much the world and what we consume as consumers. Yet they seem to always come out with a high level of quality control, and that's a big surprise for such a huge company with such a massive footprint. This is a new one for me, and I really am impressed with what they're doing. Iris Guitars.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about some of these have been around forever. This is one of those newer entries to the guitar world. Just kind of really made a big name for himself quickly.
Yeah. What I think is so cool about this is a guy who's coming into it from the tone world or tone wood world and kind of going into the guitars. Now he's been building guitars, but he's also really, really known for collecting and distributing tone woods throughout, you know, all of the guitar companies out there. So it's given him the opportunity to kind of take things that maybe have been overlooked by some other companies and find unique and high-end tone woods and put them into a more affordable package. Still keeping it as an American-made guitar, but being able to kind of take some of the add-ons and things that a lot of companies may not need and really kind of showcase the woods and the collection that he has been able to put together, voicing them cool guitars, unique looks.
Yeah.
And, so it's innovative, it's old, it's new, it's all of the above with a really nice look. So Irish Guitars definitely belongs on this list.
So, John, this is the one that I think needed to be in the top list for a good reason.
Yeah, it's this company, when you talk about manufacturing instruments, this is one of the ones that has been at the forefront for the longest amount of time, especially here in America, and that is the Gibson company. They really have, and whether or not you love the Gibson guitars or not, that's besides the point. They have been part of this industry from virtually the beginning. Not quite as long as companies like Martin, but still a very
Close,
long
at least
time.
in the instrument building, more in mandolins to begin with, but getting into the acoustic guitars a little later in the game, but have been around a long time and really contributed to the overall conversation.
Yep. Gibson guitars is one of those situations where if you are a Gibson fan, you are a Gibson fan. And no other guitar sounds like that. Nobody builds a J45 that sounds the way Gibson builds it, whether you love that or not. And I know there's going to be comments on there. I'm not that person that loves. Good for you. You know what? I played some amazing Gibson guitars. The LOOs are fantastic. LGs. They really have established models that are still copied to this day and still looked upon as standards in everybody's arsenal. When you start talking about recording sessions, nobody does not want a slope-shouldered J45 style guitar in their lineup to be able to do a recording session. It's a part of it. The Jumbo, the J200, all of these guitars were revolutionary, and they did create their own path in the acoustic guitar world. So Gibson is an important company to talk about whenever we talk about high-end guitars.
Absolutely.
Now, this is a company that everybody in Europe will act like this is the top brand by far.
It's probably the most popular brand in most of the European Union.
I would agree with you almost completely on that. I mean, they all have a reverence for Gibson and Martin and Taylor and all the standards that we see around here. But this is George Lowden and the Lowden Guitar Company. What is so awesome about Lowden is this is the first major boutique company of acoustic guitars in Europe. And coming out of Ireland, they were able to forge, again, their own way. The original O-body is still a guitar that nobody else sounds like. And every single model they built, from the F to the S to the Wee Lowden, nobody builds, even if they build the same body shape, it doesn't sound like a Lowden. And that's pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe being so far removed from the U.S. builds, they really kind of George forged his own trail as far as the mold of the guitar that he built first, and then all the subsequent guitar body sizes. There's only a Lowden that has those.
I agree, and there's been people copying it. The split saddles, we've seen Takamine take this on. So really, they are a powerhouse, just not as well known here in the States for the majority of guitar. Now, again, if you're in the boutique world, you've experienced a Lowden. Yeah. So onward and upward, Jer.
This one will come as no surprise, but we'll get some heat for it. I think we're in the bag for Eastman.
We have been for no, we're not.
We sell a lot of Eastman guitars, but it is a brand that we absolutely believe in for good reason. They were one of the ones that built a very affordable guitar that competed with the big brands out there and didn't cut corners with it. They really still hand voicing, still scalping braces. We've done some shootouts where they keep up with guitars. They punch much higher than their weight.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason we love Eastman. It's the quality of Eastman guitars in general.
It speaks for itself, and the company's been doing well too. Let's talk a little bit about why Eastman made its way into the acoustic shop. Me and you were teachers. We had been looking for instruments that would fit our students that they could afford, because there's a lot of great instruments, whether it's guitar or mandolin, but a budget-friendly one that we thought would be absolutely stand out. Once we discovered Eastman, we were pushing those on our students way before we were a music store, because of the fact they were doing something that nobody else was doing at that time, which is bringing a much higher quality instrument to a lower price point. And again, we now know that the price points are higher for Eastman than what they used to be, and that there are more, for a lot of people that is still considered a very expensive instrument. Fair enough. But again, when you take it dollar for dollar and put it up against a matching instrument, Eastman always overachieves what we expect them to do. Taylor guitars, there is absolutely no way to not include them in this list.
Whether double negatives here, but we'll go on anyway. There's no way to not. There is a way to.
No, there is no way to not.
Anyway, this is one that you can't walk through an airport without seeing somebody with a Taylor guitar strapped to their back. They have done such an excellent job and really coming up out of somewhat obscurity 30 years ago to being like one of the number 1 or 2 powerhouse guitar builders in the world.
We can tell you're old. 30 years ago was not that long ago. They were. It's more like 50 now. But
that's when they really started to come out, I think.
I agree with you. Taylor forged an absolutely new path in a world that Gibson and Martin absolutely dominated. There was no other guitars as far when Taylor got started, and it was fun. We got to sit and talk with Bob Taylor at the Fretboard Summit last year, and he was talking about designing new body shapes and curves, and he was talking about how the line is the most important part, coming up with the curves that really speak. And if you can do that, you can start to build a guitar that sounds and moves that direction. But building those initial shapes, the Grand Auditorium, the Grand Concert, even their Dreadnought was not the same as what Martin was putting out, and this is on purpose. Taylor then created the ultimate marketing machine and was able to get those guitars into the hands of every major artist in the world and really was able to fight for their spot. And now they are probably one of the very top instrument manufacturers in the world.
And they really innovated as far as using CNC machines and some of the equipment that they use to be able to build so many guitars at a very reliable and recreatable standard. They really kind of set that system in place that a lot of other companies have followed since then.
And still even allowed themselves to recreate some of what they have done, all the way from the V-class bracings to coming up with new ways to do their sound systems. They're still always pushing forward for something different, which is pretty admirable for somebody who now is a standard bearer in the guitar world. They're no longer just the new kid coming out there with new stuff. Bedell Guitars is one that I am an absolute fan of. I don't think anybody, and I do mean this, anybody builds a better sounding small body guitar out there. For my personal taste, I just love what they do. And then you have this amazing collection of tone woods that I don't think anybody else has access to. It's pretty amazing. And then on top of that, it's run by one of my favorite people in the entire world, Tom Bedell. Has
a great team around him as well.
Really, yeah, absolutely. All the team is, but Tom has become a really close friend because he is extremely passionate. We argue. Me and him have got into many different debates, and we can never admit when the other one is right. But that's beside the point. He still builds an incredible instrument, and there's just nothing quite like a Bedell guitar.
All right, John, we're going to move north of the border, if you will, and I will, to Canada and the French-speaking area of Canada, out of Quebec. We say in the U.S., they say Quebec up there.
I like it.
Where they eat poutine and build guitars.
Is that all they do? They eat
poutine and build guitars. That's all they do. They have a Labatt's every now and then.
And they also love water, fine H2O.
Hockey, and they have some syrup, maple syrup a little bit there, but they also build some incredible guitars. And we're talking about Boucher guitars, yes. Robin Boucher, a great team there. They build quite a few guitars every year, and everyone we've had in the shop has just been incredible.
Yeah, they're doing something, and they keep innovating too. Robin was one of the big pushers in the very beginning for torification, and he was supplying a lot of the guitar manufacturers with those woods. Also coming up with new ways to voice and build, new molds that have changed stuff. If you talk to our good friend J.P. Cormier, he will tell you all of the great virtues of Boucher guitars because they do keep pushing for something different. I loved sitting and talking with Robin because you can tell when you just start describing what you hear when he listens to, when you play one of his guitars and what you hear, he listens to that and tries to figure out how to build upon that. And I find that to be really cool whenever you're building with any kind of guitar builder, somebody who, again, is trying to figure out what are people looking for, because, we all have our own ideas, and to continue just to keep going down your own path of what you think guitars should sound like may be fine, and you may end up with a fantastic instrument, but to kind of get a consensus of other things that people are hearing and being able to try to figure out how to focus in on that, that makes a much more fine and refined instrument. All right, guys, let's talk about Alvarez-Yairi. This was one that kind of came back into my line. I've seen the Yairis of the past, and they were good guitars. Don't get me wrong.
They're holding high regard by a lot of the people that originally owned them.
Absolutely. Alvarez has been doing some really great stuff and tying themselves with Mr. Yairi added a whole nother level. Those instruments are fantastic, and we have been getting some in here. Every single one that we have had over the last month now has been a really great sounding and great playing guitar.
And appearance, they're almost flawless, the build quality of them. And talk about innovation. They do a lot of things that are going against the traditional grain. Maybe some people don't appreciate that, but they're kind of, again, forging their own path with the bridge system that they've developed. Some of the bracing patterns and the way they're doing the pick guard on there. We've talked about this in other videos. But what you can't knock them is if you play one of them, the sustain goes on forever. They have a full, even tone.
And I don't think they're trying to copy anybody. And I find that to be also refreshing too. There's not a sound that they're trying to go after. Like you said, building that bridge system, it's going to have its own unique tone. They're using premium woods, premium builds. And again, this is an import instrument that shouldn't be treated like an import. Just like we talked about with Yamaha, this is not an inexpensive instrument at all. This is a well-built, high-end build that deserves to be put in the same class as just about anything out there right now. And again, I think they're even pushing it further now than they were 10 or 15 years ago. So kudos to Yairi for continuing to grow as a company. We're now getting into our last 5 instrument builders, Jeremy. So we've gone through 10, and these last 5 are some pretty big, powerful hitters.
Again, in no particular order, but
No.
these are just ones that definitely should be on the list. And one that is legendary in the guitar building world, again, had a major influence. I didn't realize the influence he had on bringing back the OM model from Martin. He's one of the guys that really made that happen.
Exactly.
And he's just known for the way he voices tops is so unique and dialed in that everybody can tell a Dana Bourgeois guitar.
You can. Bourgeois guitars has their own sound, and it may take you a minute to get used to it. If you're looking for a big, monstrous, just go-getter kind of instrument, it's probably not the one for you. But if you're looking for something that is refined and is absolutely hitting its peak of every single frequency that it could possibly produce, that's probably the instrument that you're looking for. So Dana has definitely pushed it, and also now is pushing it further with the tone woods. Everybody looks up to this guy and asks him questions about how they build guitars and how to continue to create a more refined acoustic guitar tone.
So the young kids these days, John.
Yeah.
Am I right?
There's a
you
bunch
got your
of
Billy
them.
Strings and your Molly Tuttles. And what do they have in common? They both play Thompson guitars.
Yep, Preston Thompson guitars are definitely one of my favorite guitar builders. Extremely hard to get a hold of. This is one of those ones, we've had instruments on order for 3 to 4 years now that are finally making their way to getting done. But
Supply and demand.
it takes a long time to build a Preston Thompson guitar. Excuse me, but it does come when they do show up. Every single one of them has been a premium, and it is a very small shop. So this is kind of one of those ones that we were I was wrestling a little bit with bringing this one in here because it is such a small shop. But those of you who have followed the channel know I really, really love these guitars and what they do. And it's a good look, it's a good sound. They're really kind of firing on all cylinders when it comes to that. Now it's just figuring out how to get more of them out there in time for all the people who are wanting to see them, because that's also making the price go up dramatically. They are definitely becoming a major price increase on the market, but for most people it's absolutely worth it. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum here is a guy that we discovered about 5 years ago.
The world, really.
Well, he's also on the other side of the world. But tone-wise, this guy has really dialed in something that is extremely spectacular. It's Alistair Atkin and Atkin Guitars. They're building
old England.
You're correct, from England, building vintage monsters. And I mean that. It's got a dry vintage tone, yet they're like amplified to 100. It's like you've taken everything and just turn that knob up just a little bit further.
It feels like he's having fun with the building of the guitars he's doing. He's going after some of those classic looking and classic models, both with Gibson and Martin. He's finding those guitars. He's recreating them. Sometimes he does the antiquing and aging. Other times he just does less of a severe version of aging. But all of them, it's like he's having fun with the models that he builds.
Even going
There's
into
some interesting
colors,
combinations.
and now going into the electric stuff. I think this is a guy who has a reverence for vintage American guitars, and now is trying to figure out how to really encapsulate the best ones that he's ever seen or heard, and taking all the best features of that and putting them all into one. And it's kind of making for a really unique guitar build. All the way from the White Rice to the J43, the small bodies, they're really coming in. Every single one of them has come in extremely nice and rarely stay inside the shop.
Yeah, and it's one that every time that we get a shipment, every guitar player that works at our shop has to be waiting in line to play those.
Another guy who forged a big path here in the acoustic world is Bill Collings. And Bill Collings really did do something to the guitar industry that was pretty amazing. It was like he was listening to vintage instruments and then going, let me figure out how to make this cleaner. Let's figure out how to make this even more, because again, the vintage guitars that everybody was looking at, they're well built. They don't have the cleanest of lines. Yeah. Sometimes we see glue joints and things that are on the insides
I think he's the one that really, or one of the ones that really helped introduce boutique guitar building. Like, you had a really good sounding, good playing guitar, but boutique, when you think of that word, you just think of perfection. You think of spending all those minutes and hours making sure that every line, every piece of finish on there is perfect, and it doesn't leave the shop until it is.
I agree with that, and they're just still doing a great job. We were talking to Steve Nolly, and it's they're innovating with new sounds. They're listening to how people are doing, not just creating the crisp Collings sound, but figuring out how to create a more vintage bluegrassy kind of tone with the new guitars, and still doing it with immaculate details. Inside of guitars are every bit as clean as the outside of it is. So Collings is definitely one of the top guitar builders in the world. No list could be complete without talking about what I would consider
not even talking about guitars, but any list, like your top favorite bands or
anyway,
cars.
The Martin Guitar Factory, this is one of those companies that has been the flag bearer for steel string guitars. They were one of the very first companies to kind of master the steel string guitar.
90% of the companies out there wouldn't exist without this company innovating with the Dreadnought guitar, like
the X-Brace, the ability to create a steel string.
Even the tone wood combinations of mahogany and red
rosewood,
spruce. Yep. Rosewood as well.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but you're right. The tone wood combinations that we're all looking for all pretty much started at CF Martin, and that company has gone through a lot of major changes, and it continues, but yet it is also the most traditional of all those companies. We were talking earlier about Gibson and Taylor, who are also in that forefront of the biggest companies of building guitars. But Martin has had a legacy that they just will not let go of, no matter what. When they do come up with new innovations and how to build guitars, they're in a kind of catch-22, because when they build a new sound, a new style guitar, that's not a Martin. Yet they were the ones that innovated it in the first place. So let them, I don't, it's a good idea to let them kind of create some new innovations. But again, everything is kind of measured off of what Martin has done and is still doing to this day. And it continues to be one of the biggest powerhouses in the acoustic guitar world. Not to say that they're the best built guitar or the best sounding guitar, but they are probably the best acoustic guitar company out there, because they are the ones setting the standard for everybody else, and expectations are based off what you see out of the Guitar Factory. Well, that, Jeremy, is the top 15 acoustic guitar companies out there.
According to John.
According to me. And again, I want to reiterate, there are tons of companies. If you didn't see your favorite on there, it is not because I don't find them to be there. There's quite a few in there. I can name many, many boutique as well as big companies that are not on this list, only because there wasn't enough space for them. I am with you when we say that this is the best time period for instrument building. This is absolutely the fact. And there aren't very many guitar companies that are just building junk right now.
Yeah.
If they have pride in their company and they're not trying to just throw out something for $1, a money spot, then they're probably building a pretty darn good instrument. Because I have seen there hasn't been a single brand that has been brought to me where at least one of their models has not been something that I would stack up against a
It's a great time to be a guitar player right now, and
Absolutely.
It was a fun list to have. Like I said, not in any particular order because it's hard to really, even if there was a first, second, and third place, it's really hard to say how far apart were they or why did we choose one or the other. We did do another video last year where you actually did count down your top 10 favorite
Of my
boutique
favorites.
builders. And I think it was a good list. We had a lot of controversy. Some people disagreed with you. But I think in general, it's hard to say that anyone that you chose on there didn't deserve to be on that list. So
Well, obviously, because I liked them and I told you that I liked them, so that makes the list.
therefore, no, but we encourage you guys to put in the comments down below who you think should have been on that list if you disagree with any of our choices. I think that it's a pretty hard list to have a problem with. I do know there are others that
there's
deserve to be on the list as well. And we'd love to hear what you guys think.
Now that I think about it, there's like 5
Start
more.
over, let's do it again.
No.
No, we do have also John's top 10 favorite boutique builders of 2023. The link to that video is right here. Check it out and let us know what you think. We'll see you guys next time.